Hello and welcome to In Our Community. We're visiting today with Lynnea Hagen. Lynnea is a very special, powerful lady. She is doing something in life that I have close to my heart. She's studying when people get stuck. And so we're going to be exploring how do you get unstuck. Lynnea, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I have been a consultant and a coach for a little over 2 many
You saw it
years.
here, folks.
Yes.
Can we get a replay on that?
Yeah. Since I was 7, so it's been over 35 years, and I was in technology. I decided to leave because my passion was really about developing people and helping people achieve their dreams, be the best they could possibly be, and through that, help make the world a better place.
Beautiful. That's great.
And so I've had my own business coaching businesses, as well as just plain folk in their careers for, I don't know, let me see, about 15 years now.
Okay.
And I'm a writer. I'm a speaker.
Okay.
And
Now, when you say you're a writer, what do you write? Nonfiction mostly?
Only nonfiction.
Okay.
Only nonfiction. I'm just not much of a storyteller. I don't read a lot of nonfiction, so I don't read a lot of fiction. So I tend to write, from my heart, from my own experiences, and from the learnings I've had through working with others.
Great. So one of the big things you work on is when people often get stuck, they want to get unstuck.
Right.
What are some of your tips for people when they're stuck? What can they do to get unstuck?
Well, there's actually a lot. I've got my book.
Yes, and we're going to be featuring this book a lot because I love this book. It's about getting unstuck. The title of the book is Lynnea Hagen on Stuckness. So if you search for it anywhere, search for Lynnea Hagen on Stuckness.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're very welcome.
It's 140 insights and tips to get unstuck, get going, and get what you want.
Okay.
And some couple of ways.
Yeah.
Let me kind of back up a little bit.
Okay.
And
yeah, go ahead.
And if you look at who we are, I started thinking about how we're organic. We go through seasons, we go through growth. We have to slough off some things in order to grow.
Right.
And I always wondered if a snake or a tree, by losing what they have to lose in order to grow or go into the next season, if they feel any pain about it, because people really do.
Yes.
And to me, that's just part of the process, and it's certainly been my process through life, because I've been through quite a bit of things. And so what we tend to look at in our businesses and our lives is what we can see on top. If you look at a tree, and I've got a model that I created called the ecosystem of success. If you look at a tree, people look at the fruits, but they're not looking at what's really important, which is a couple of things. The trunk, which attaches everything, and everything has to flow out of it. But also, it is attached deep into the roots. And what we really need to do is start looking at the roots. And it's the things like our relationships, our thoughts and beliefs, our relationship with ourselves and how we're using our gifts. And so a lot of that has to do with what we're putting up with in our lives.
How do we do that on a day-to-day basis? Like, let's say I'm working a job 9 to 5, I've got a 45-minute lunch, I've got 2 kids, and I'm married. What can I do through a normal day that will help me remember to pay attention to the roots and the trunk?
There are 2 things that are probably the most powerful. The rest, as when we start getting in and do these 2 things, everything starts to kind of slough off, because it builds our self-value, our self-esteem, and it actually, as we're tending less to the root systems that are being poisoned, we are feeding the roots instead, and so everything becomes healthier. So the most number 1 tip, and this is the easiest to get into, is a daily practice of gratitude. And there's so much research that has been done on the power of gratitude. And I'm not talking about, say, yes, I'm grateful for my kids in my house, but it's what I call the little gratitude gems.
Give us some examples.
I sit down in the morning and I'm grateful for the fact that I can sit up and feed myself.
Okay.
I'm grateful for the people who grew the blueberries. I'm grateful for being able to taste them. It's all these things that are part of everything. I'm grateful for sitting here with you. And as we develop this habit, it actually changes our brain's chemistry.
Oh, really?
It changes our brain chemistry. It releases the positive chemicals in our brain.
Okay.
It lifts us up. And we decide to unconsciously start looking for more things that are positive.
Okay.
Now, when we find positivity...
By virtue of having this practice.
Right. I mean, I'm grateful for the people who created these lights and the people working on the cameras. And as I do this exercise at night, I have a gratitude journal. It's amazing the changes that take place, especially the last thing at night. Because you can be grateful for the fact that there was somebody there to collect your money at a bank or something.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for somebody who let me in line at Safeway. We see the world as a much friendlier place with a lot of positivity, and the positivity feeds us, it feeds our psyche, it feeds us soulfully, and it's an amazing process because when we get rid of just concentrating on what's wrong, and we tend to focus on that, and we're driving and we're thinking of all the stuff that's going on in our life.
Yes.
It opens up possibilities to what's really right.
And you're saying it's not just a change of perception on our part, but rather it makes a real change in the physical universe, such as inside our brain. Maybe it helps change the way events occur or the way we interact with events such that
Yes.
our lives become more positive.
They do, and it changes relationships. There's a saying that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change.
Okay.
Everything is a matter of perspective.
Okay.
So that's the first big thing. The other big thing is to define and really at a really personal level, what is the meaning of your life?
Wow.
And we all have a purpose. I know, everybody
Yes,
does.
it's a big one.
And what's your life's assignment?
Okay.
And the beauty of that is that it also, rather than feeling like, gee, I'm such a loser, or feeling embarrassed because maybe there was something that we made a mistake at, it actually kind of rises us above all that, and the blooming starts to naturally take place.
Okay, now, do me a favor. Say this second tip from the beginning again. I say this because I have a learning disability, and
Okay.
say it again as though you haven't said it yet, like newly, starting with the second one.
Okay.
What are you telling us about this?
What I'm telling you is that one of the greatest things we can do for ourselves is figure out why we're here.
Okay. That seems like a difficult thing to do. How do we do that?
There are simple ways to do it, but they're not simplistic.
Okay.
And there's a couple of ways. I've worked with the True Purpose Institute, as well as one of the top leadership coaches who actually works with big corporate leaders and whole corporations and now whole cities, the city of Louisville.
Can you walk us through the process of somebody discovering what they did, or how would you? We got to make it more visceral.
Okay, there's a couple different ways. Now, this is a very visceral way.
Okay.
There's one question. What is the one thing that you feel is the greatest threat to the existence of humanity or the planet?
Oh, good. Okay.
That's a painful thing to think about.
Yeah.
And, I had a radio show a while back, and live talk radio, and I brought in somebody about leadership and about building businesses. And I said, what is the big mistake that most business people do, or business owners or leaders? They don't take time to think.
Yes. Okay.
And we don't.
Very good.
We think that if we're busy, then we're getting something accomplished.
We're doing what's needed to be done. Yeah,
and the greatest thing we can do in order to accomplish more is to don't just do something, sit there. And so this is a really important question. And I can speak from my own experience because, like I said, I've been through some traumas in my life, and it has really helped me build a higher sense of self-value and self-esteem, and a bigger sense of my own passion, and it builds energy and without being drained. So the reason I'm asking this question is because often, not for always, but oftentimes our purpose is found in the thing that gives us the greatest pain.
Yep.
So, and I can, as a personal story, can.
Yes,
okay.
please. No. We
as I did a survey of my own life, I thought about the ways in which I was neglected, I was betrayed, I was hurt, I was damaged by others, and getting back to kind of like the child that we all are.
Yeah.
I decided that the greatest threat is not honoring the sacredness of other people. If we just did that,
yeah,
but also not honoring the sacredness of the earth, because that gives me a huge amount of pain. So by answering that question now, I can turn that around and say, what's the opposite of this?
Yeah.
It's to honor the sacredness of people on the planet.
But we have not talked about this before this, so that it's very beautiful that you're bringing this up, because I've been studying Zen for 20 years or so. And as you were saying this, I tried to pose the question to myself, and there were all these pieces like compassion and kindness and generosity and engaged Buddhism. And then I thought, well, as you said the word sacred, I'm thinking, okay, if in fact I regarded each person as sacred, all these other pieces would be in there. They'd be under that umbrella. I would be respecting them. I would be compassionate, etc.
Exactly.
So
and
that's very beautiful.
When I see that missing, it gives me great pain. So I know that that's one way I can make the world a better place. And what I did is then I molded that a bit to where my purpose is to create a more loving and sustainable planet. And I can do that all the time.
Okay.
And the sense of the truth of that hit me, and it was kind of like, and it makes a huge shift. And so a lot of the negative thoughts and beliefs about myself started to dissipate because I rose above that. And I chose not to go there anymore because now I can honor myself as well and respect myself.
Yes, it's like Michelle says, they go low, we go high. Michelle Obama.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So in a day's time, or is there a, we've already talked a little bit about how a person can use this in a normal day. Give us some examples maybe from the news or things that we might have heard of where you feel like that's a good example of how this played out, regarding people as more sacred. Is there something you'd reference that's happened over the years, or?
I look for stuff like that, and I post it on Facebook because I don't want to be part of the negativity.
Yeah.
And we're so infused with
There's
that.
so much of it, yes.
And in fact, I've even told clients who don't seem to be able to move
Past
themselves
it.
past,
Yeah.
They're feeling stuck. And I said, what do you do? Tell me about your day from the time you get up. Well, I read the newspaper, then then I drive to work, and then what do you do?
I'm out of my mind.
I'm listening to the news on the way to work, and then and then what do you do at lunch? Well, then I read the newspaper, and then and then he turns on the news at home, and I said, why do you need to be so involved and so informed? And he said, well, I want to be unplugged from that negativity.
Yeah.
And
what would you do instead? Would you play some self-help tape or music or
anything that makes you feel good?
Okay. That or you yourself really
do
identify
some good
with.
Self-talk about how great you are. I mean, there's a lot of different things. I have classical music station on all day because it inspires me and it doesn't interfere with what I need to do.
Okay.
So a lot of it is what I call extreme self-care, where caring for yourself at a level in the kind of relationships you have, what kind of thoughts and music and stuff are you allowing into your mind? What are you feeding your body?
Okay.
And as we get more in touch with why we're here and that inspires us, then they tend to start doing that more with ourselves.
Okay.
But there's another way to find purpose, if I can just kind of go on. A couple different ways. I think of the Candy Lightner, who was the founder of Mothers Against Drunk Driving.
Mm-hmm.
Her purpose became to save the lives of other people.
After there was a tragedy in her life.
In her own life. And so you can turn that around
Yeah.
and say, how can I now, through this, bring a gift to
Yes.
the world?
And I always think it's amazing that someone has such a big tragedy and they're willing to help others and take this tragedy and make it into something beautiful. That's a stunning thing. So.
Or you hear about people who have lost a loved one through shooting or something like that, something horrific.
Yeah.
And they go and they will forgive.
Yeah.
And then maybe work with somebody who has the same
Yes.
problems as the killer and saying,
Yes.
how we can
Yes.
lift these other people up.
That's amazing.
And
amazing stuff.
it's
Those are
it's a
beautiful
powerful thing.
examples. Yeah.
And oftentimes, if we just kind of think, what really lights me up?
Mm-hmm.
If it really lights me up, why?
Yeah. And most of us, I would think, either by asking what really lights me up, or as you said previously, what thing in the world is the biggest threat to happiness, to existence, etc. Between the two, we ought to be able to figure out what really gets us excited or what we like the most.
Exactly.
Hopefully, and then act on some of that. So,
Exactly.
you mentioned a phrase, I don't know where I picked it up at, profitability of purpose.
Yes.
Can you say, what do you, I haven't heard that phrase before. Can you tell us something about what does it mean? What is it about? Is it a tool that we can use, or?
Actually, it's really about the benefits to human beings as well as to businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically, that businesses that are being run by, number one, a leader who has defined this great purpose for why the company exists, and also for himself is a more inspiring person, and they have a workplace that is,
People want to come to.
they want to come to it.
Like the guy who runs Salesforce, for example, or
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's somebody who says, what I want for myself, I want for them. And that attracts better employees, it attracts clients. And they have less cost of doing business because they don't have the turnover, which is very costly to a business.
Yep.
They have higher revenues, they have higher profits.
Right.
So for the bottom line, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I think most of us have been in companies or in professions where you're just kind of beaten down, or you're forced into a hole,
Yeah.
and that.
No, don't worry, we have. I can testify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for a business, that's the profitability
Smart.
of having a
It's
business.
smart, and you're helping the planet.
Exactly.
I saw some stuff about Mark Zuckerberg and his wife. His wife's name, unfortunately, escapes me, but she's
Yeah.
a medical doctor. They've done a lot of things, not just with giving, millions and millions and millions of dollars, but also I read somewhere that his vision for the world is to be able to have the use of internet help change the world. And so they're trying to put extra satellites up over certain countries and continents, do things that ensure that everybody gets a voice. That's just probably one of the ways that we can make some of these things
Make a
come
positive
about.
difference.
Yeah. So a person starting a brand new business,
Okay.
maybe they haven't even written their business plan yet. How do they, that whole thing about credit, green credits and all that.
Yes.
How do they take these ideas that you've presented to us and kind of weave them into their company in a way that it's really part of the corporate culture?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring this up, because I don't think you know that I work with companies on business plans.
No, I don't. But
And so the number one step is to work with the leader or the leadership team and get them really in touch with why they're here. And then on a bigger scale, what does their business mean? So I start first on what their meaning of success is for themselves.
them as individuals?
As individuals.
Before the company. Okay, before they start.
And so what kind of legacy do you want to leave and why?
Mm-hmm.
And I work with them on their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then in doing the business plan, get really clear, of course, on where does the business want to go.
Okay, now I have a tough question for you coming
What's
up.
that?
You ready?
Okay. And the other one is about and the mission has a lot to do with what's the eternal statement
Yeah.
of why your company exists.
Right. So we have a world, especially here in the West, maybe some Eastern countries are also doing the same thing. Highly competitive, very cutthroat. Once you've done your IPO, you've got a board of directors who are saying, I want more profit next month. You did 3% profit this month. I want 5% next month. I want 7% the next month. It's not even like, okay, you can sit here and get 7% the rest of your life. It's 7% profit every month. We're still not happy. We want more profit. We want return value to the shareholders. And these things just keep CEOs up at night. You know?
Right.
How do we weave these two things that seem to be very contradictory together in a way that people can keep growing their business and not go into, doing things that are less than honest or such,
There's a couple of things. That's a good question. Thank you. Number one is first of all, looking at the bottom line of the difference it makes to have a business that is founded and run like this. And there's
So you're saying there's an additional benefit that the board of directors might not see or the shareholders might not see?
Well, it's the financial benefit. There's a lot of corporations are being run like this, and there's a lot of research through the Secretan Institute, which I took my leadership training through. And they've been working for many years based on this.
What's the name of the group again?
Secretan is Dr. Lance Secretan founded it, and he's considered by the Leadership Journal and other leadership publications considered his company is considered the #1 leadership.
Now, can we show?
Coaching.
Is there a trail? And can an accountant sit down and say, "I can see the trail from your having done this good thing."
Yes.
To an extra $1.7 million at the bottom. Can we see that?
Yes.
And where can we read about that?
Well, you can read. You can just do a search on the on purpose-based companies, the bottom line purpose-based companies.
So that's a phrase that might help us find this stuff.
Right.
Okay.
But also at secretan.com.
How do you spell Secretan?
It's like secretary. It's SECRETAN.com.
I've never heard of that, so okay.
It's interesting because people who are really kind of infusing themselves with leadership, they know about this. But he's, and the work he does and the work that his team does, they work with large corporations all over the world. In fact, worked with Humana Company in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yep.
And then the University of Louisville saw the bottom line difference and the University of Louisville.
Real cash.
Exactly.
Americans love cash.
And then the great thing about this is that, everybody does. It's not just an American thing, but capitalism. And so through the leadership from Humana and the University of Louisville, they were part of the city organization.
Okay.
And the city of Louisville actually brought all of this into the city of Louisville and called it One Louisville.
Okay.
And they brought in 250 more businesses, created 25,000 more jobs by adopting this model and bringing everybody together.
Cool. Very cool.
So
I have a question. I'm trying to get as many of these questions as I can. We have a new thing, especially out here. Everybody's worried about their personal brand.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about this yet, so.
Okay.
What do you think? Is it important for us to really try to have a real personal brand, or is it a smoke screen that makes people worry too much?
Talk about just people?
Well,
people?
yes. I see a lot of this. I've got my Twitter feed set up a certain way. A lot of news items, etc., and a lot of businesses, Fast Company Incorporated,
right,
Wall Street Journal, these things. A lot of people are talking about personal brand, Mark Isaac Potter this, or Lynnea Hagen this. Even a person who's not in business is supposed to regard themselves as having a personal brand. And it's a thing that I've noticed that I'm not I want you to give your opinion. What do you think of it? I don't want to preempt
Well, you know,
your...
that's pretty interesting. I haven't heard about this, so I have to give it some thought.
Okay.
I think, of course, for people in business, that's probably a good idea. In fact, let me think about this some more. For a professional, if somebody wants to be hired or retained or elevated in a company, it might not be a bad idea to kind of have a personal brand.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy for people to identify them. And if you're known for a certain thing,
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes easier for that people to do business with you, whether it's the business of you
Mm-hmm.
or it's
Right.
your business.
Okay.
So might not be a bad idea.
And if you had a client who came to you and said, I'm working on my personal brand, and I realize I don't mean to really put you on the spot, but what would you suggest to them? And more a person who's worrying about their personal brand than, say, their company brand. What would they? Because a lot of my viewers are seniors. They've already retired.
Right.
They're trying to relax, but yet they're in a world that's, where people are paying attention to everything we do. So these individual people, how would you speak to them about personal brand?
I would approach it a couple of different ways. Another big question, like what is your purpose, is what inspires you about you?
Oh, beautiful. Okay. What inspires you about you?
Yes.
That's an interesting way to put it.
I mean, what inspires me about me is that I'm a possibilities thinker.
Okay.
And also, what is it you really love to do? There's something, we all have individual needs that somehow feed us, and and if we don't have those, then it's like you're without air or
Yes,
water.
yes.
So I have a great need for harmony. I have a
Okay.
great need for freedom.
Okay.
And in fact, I've got assessments with my clients so they can kind of figure out their professional path or whatever, to figure out
good.
their
Okay,
needs
assessments. That's
and
good.
also their values.
Yeah.
And we have
That's
to live
good.
by our
No,
higher
that
values.
keeps them on track, I'll bet.
So I'm a kind of a harmony and personal freedom gal.
Okay. So at that note, we need
Okay.
to say goodbye. We loved having you here. I
Oh, my
hope you'll
goodness.
come back.
Wow.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for viewing. This has been In Our Community with our lovely guest, Lynnea Hagen. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Mark.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you on.